So hello and welcome back. I'm still Christophe Clermont from EFI, and we will continue to have a look at the new event selector item for version 8.2 of Market Direct Cross Media. So far we have seen everything you need to set up the first event booking page here. But so let's get a little bit more into the details, how to modify the layout. And before we're doing that, I want to quickly have a look at one thing that we didn't cover concerning data, and this is about the rights. Since the event session table is used by the web API on that landing page, we need to give the campaign the rights to do that. And this is what you see in web API settings. That has been automatically set up from the item for you so that it works. But if you decide to upload your own data, then you have to take care that these rights are set correctly. Normally, I would say what we need here is the admin, that's a designer view, so that's all good if they have complete access. But on the Perl, we definitely need read and write access. We won't need create and delete records because this is not what a user will do. And actually restrict columns means that we only can actually work on the columns which are shown in the data relation, which is fine as well. So basically it's about read and write records. Please turn this two checkers on when you upload your own data to allow the item to work properly. So let's have a look on layout. So first let's walk through the tree and see how we can change the layout. I will not care too much on the logic, but just firsthand on the layout and how we can change that. So in the event selector, we got a couple of child items. The first one is this gets a name header. It's very important that it has this name because then it acts as a header. And it has to be the first item to do so. The header is all that stuff that is not repeating, like the countdown here and and the confirm selection button. And if nothing is actually loaded or no button has been pressed, then we will see that message here, which is please select the sessions you want. So we got the countdown, the please select, and we got the button, which is actually the last item here, which we always only see if we click a checker here. This is just the header here. To change that, we have these yellow items. One is the yellow flag thing, which is called event data interaction or event interaction. And then we got text, which is called event data text. This behaves pretty much like a normal Flex container, as we see here with all the properties. Plus, we have some additional options to control the logic. But first, on the design. So this is basically when I reload, I will see the please select the sessions you want. This is this item here. So we can go and we can, for example, place a background color, whatever we can take here, and it will apply a background color to that. We got the data text item here, which also can be, for example, a normal headline item. But to be able to edit the headline, you have to leave the data preview mode. And now we can actually change the orientation here to vertical. We can go in here and we can have our static design, but this is just static. So in that case, that works probably well. And the second area is the countdown, which has a little bit more logic here. So when we look at the text item, you will see, and we will talk about this in a minute, that there is actually some variables coming to the game and driving that. But still, you got the text here. You can change the text without understanding what it does. So let me put that to a different text here, to the orange, and also I can. Since we're using the markdown syntax here, we got a text for bold, which I can change independently. So I always have to click back on here to see what's happening. And also I am able to change the color. There's another quote text for simple formatting with markdown syntax here. So actually markdown only means you put 2 stars and a word, and then it's actually getting bold. So we can check this here with our headline, or static headline. I can show you that. So please select So what we can do is we can put 2 stars before and after the select word. And if we do so, we can now say that the bold style should be the main headline. And now select appears in a different font style. The reason why we do that is same like within the forms, makes it much easier when you deal with logic and with data to apply simple formatting and keep them independent from the actual logic. So the items definitely can be designed freely as normal in the tree. So we got the header here, and then we're coming to all that items 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Because this is a footer. The footer is like the header. It only appears once at the bottom of the page. So, but in between, everything in between the header and the footer will be repeated for each session we have. We see that when we go to the data mode, because then we actually got the repeats here. These repeats are done from the item, and it's done by what's called data binding. So we're using a data binding library, very reliable, stable one. It's called Knockout.js, and this is doing the magic for us to basically bind, get the data to the layout and do it in an interactive way. Because what you already have noticed is when I click on that item, it immediately updates everything. I don't have to submit, I don't have to wait, it just does it. And this is quite the nice thing of using data binding, which is why that will more and more be dominant in version 8.2 instead of having always to submit the pages. And so in that repeat, I'm actually having the block for the next date, which is the date block here. Name the date so it's easier to find. So why is this just only showing once and not everywhere? So let's say, let me just put a group into somewhere. Let's just put a group in here, just make it, give it a height so we can see it, 20 pixel, and basically just apply a background color as well. So we got this group, and we should make it to 100%. So we will see it everywhere. In each of these, each loop will repeat that group. So we can of course put a headline in here and write something. It's a little bit cut up now because I gave it a fixed height. Anyhow, but this is just the normal layout which is repeated. So, but this date here is only visible when the date changes. And here we have a good example where we can see how the flex interaction works together with the data. So what we're doing is we got this flex container here, and this has an interaction property here. And if we set this to predefined, we can select a range of options that the event selector provides us. So this can be, for example, an indication, so getting just visible when something is true, or it can also have an interaction where something happens when the user clicks on it. In that case, we're just using as an indicator, and we set indicate next day. So whenever a next day comes from the data source, this thing will get visible, and it will show us the start date, which is actually put to the data text item, and it's just written in here. It says start date. The list of all the variables which is available here, we can see when we're using the debug option. So that's exactly what I told you in the first tutorial, but we didn't click on it. So when we go to show debug options, we see all the things we can use, like start date, start time, end time, duration, pending, all the things which we can use to display, we will see here in a list. So having said this, have a look back to the start date, and this is basically just going into that header here. And of course, since this is very simple JavaScript, I can say plus because I need to do that to have my own text, and then I can just also type some text in here. And then you will have the start date and text. So you can, in a simple way, you can really easily get your own messaging in here. The styling doesn't require you to change anything of that. The styling is, again, just give that a different style, go to the flex container here, have a look for we got a border here. We can make this border thick, for example, that we have the thick border. Below that, we can change the background color to something, that's maybe a little bit too heavy. So that's all just not in the logic of the tool. So size, padding, it's actually very much what you're used to do and what you used to do in every layout. So let me just turn out the debug information, because we will talk about the data later on. When we go deeper, we have the same story with time. So time is a container that is indicate next time slot. So it's only visible if the time slot changes, which is unfortunately the case in every session here, that the time slot is not absolutely the same. And in the start time here, the same story. We can go there, we can have a look for the text style, we can change the text style to something else, like the quote, so we get very gray little numbers here. We have that defined as, it has a background color here, and we can change this, of course, as well. And have a look at the center section here, which is actually our item. So it's everything under the time slot. And when we click on certain elements, we will see them highlighted on the right hand side. So the main container is containing our title attribute, which is actually, again, a data text item. Same story, we're using the title variable here. And we got the category, which is actually using a little bit more of JavaScript here. I will have a look on that later as well. So that is only the only idea here is that only if there is a category, we want to display a category. If there is no category, we don't want to display a category. That's what this thing is doing. So this is actually the little tiny arrow here, which can disable the details. Next element is the details itself. So it's not visible right now, but when I click it on, it's visible, and it's actually just displaying the details from my database. And of course, again, I can go there, I can select another text style, and it will apply another text style, or can just change the size or the font size or position, whatever. It's just turned off and on because it's the details. And then we got, I think we got the image itself. The image itself, it's outside of the headline here. So the image itself is also set to an option like toggle details, because it's a magic flex container. We got several options here. So one of it is toggle details. So whenever we say, when we click on that, that should toggle the details, it will do, because we just assigned it to it. And another thing is the image itself. This is actually bound to the field of our database. And again, this is something like, you see a new mode here because we are now in the event selector. We got a new image mode, which is called data binding. And then we simply put image URL as our variable in here. Image URL, it's simply the name of the field which we used in our event session table. So this is called image URL. So we can simply use that by assigning it to the data binding property here in our background image, which makes the magic that this image is bound to that place. And here we got the buttons. And the buttons, it's actually a lot of flex, of data event flex items, or event interaction items, to be clear. Sorry about that. It's the event interaction item. And this is called book session, cancel booking, indicate time over, indicate category, and indicate sold out. And you can imagine what it does. It's just the single items which do all the logic to say, I can book, so I show an empty square where the user can click on. I can cancel because I'm showing the cancel button only if there is already something booked and am allowed to cancel it. I can indicate the time overlap, so I see the overlap icon just only if there is a time overlap in the booking. And it's all done the same thing, because these are all the event interaction items, and they're all predefined, and this is the options are selected. So for book session, it's book session selected. And we turned on show icons, which means it shows us these pretty nice default icon here, which makes it all workable. This does not mean that you are stick to the icon, of course, because you can upload your own background image, put it to that button, or make even your own container text or whatever in there. It does not change anything of the fact that when somebody clicks on this thing, on that group here, then it books the seminar, and it swaps and turns off this item and maybe turns on the cancel booking item, because cancel booking is nothing else than just the same thing with the checkout. So that's actually indicating you can cancel now, because when I click now, then I cancel. If it's not booked, I can book. If it's booked, I can cancel. So these are these items. You can put your own images in, and we can, by the way, do that to give you an idea. So let's say the background image of the cancel booking item, we want to put to an uploaded image, and go to the uploaded images. And from our theme, we would see, let me take just any image. When we click on the item, we will see the image in the background here. If we only want to see the image, we can go to that flex item, which is the cancel session, and we can give it a size. It already has a size. So we turn out the default icons, we turn them off, and when we click on it, we will see only the part of that building here. So it could be anything. It's also possible, of course, to put a text in here. So let's say, you can say, for example, a text frame here, and in that text frame, problem is more to reach that text frame. You can click on this and you might get it again. Yeah, so you see, this is a problem here, because now it's interactive. It's very hard to reach that text frame. This is exactly the reason why we recommend not to use a normal text item, but instead using the event data text, because when using that, we are always able to just type it in here in quotation marks, hello, whatever. So click on this, gives us the hello text and the image. This is more handy. Plus you got the data binding options here, and you can edit the text on the left-hand side instead of inline. So that's the magic of these event data text, which should be used. It's easier. So that's the whole magic here with the buttons. So it's all that buttons, and they get interactive automatically. And then we have the footer. So I think that's the first round trip about how the event item basically is built. In the next round, I will go even deeper and explain a little bit more about the data binding concept. But I think you're now well equipped to change the layout and adjust the entire thing to your needs.